Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you all have been staying healthy. Woke up this morning convinced that I was coming down with a cold, and so I just had a really lazy day of drinking lots of tea and trying to stay healthy and just stay in my apartment. All my coworkers are getting sick, people are really sniffly outside, and I do not want to get sick because next week I'm taking some time off until the end of the year for the holidays. I hate when you take time off and you get sick. Like, I need to be healthy and enjoy every single one of my days off. So hope everyone is staying healthy and hydrated out there. I have finished 2 books since the last time I did a reading update. Finished Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which is part of my Narnia read along that I'm doing with Andy Smith, and we did our spoilery discussion of it yesterday, which went so wonderfully. I love talking about Narnia with Andy because we are like sort of on the same page about most things, but like it's just fun to hear Andy's thoughts on various like biblical references because he knows more about that aspect of the series than I do, and just learning from Andy is always wonderful. Yeah, I loved Voyage of the Dawn Treader. It's the 3rd book in publication order of the series, and it is probably my favorite so far. So I've read these books so long ago, like when I think I was in 5th grade, maybe 4th grade. No, 5th grade. I remember really enjoying them, and I remember reading all of them, but I don't remember like specific plot details at this point because I only read them once. There were certain things in Voyage of the Dawn Treader that just took me by surprise. It's a little bit darker than the previous books. It's a little bit more mature, still very much for kids, but I think that the step up in the content and like where Lewis was willing to go with the story was very interesting, and I think it made for a more dynamic kind of story. And just in general, I feel like there was such variety of different magical things happening. The sea and the Dawn Treader itself and Eustace, it's just a very enchanting, charming story. If you've read Voyage of the Dawn Treader, I highly recommend checking out Andy and I's discussion from yesterday. We had a lot of fun with this one, and yeah, I'm excited to read The Silver Chair next. I think we've officially moved past the Pevensies. I think I might be a Pevensey hater because I don't find those children to be interesting at all. I feel like they're too goody two-shoes, with the exception of Edmund. But then after book 1, he kind of becomes a goody two-shoes as well. And I think I prefer my protagonist to be a little bit more mischievous, a little bit more conniving, I guess is maybe the right word. So I'm excited to move past the Pevensies and into like weird magical Narnia. The other book that I finished is A Stranger in Olandria by Sophia Scimitar. This was a buddy read that I'm doing with Angela from Literature Science Alliance, and I had so much fun going back and forth and discussing the book with her as we read. And yeah, this book was fascinating. It's been on my radar for a while. The book follows the character of Jevick, who is the son of a wealthy merchant, and after the death of his father, he, goes to Olandria in order to carry on the family business. While he's there are a series of events that lead him to go on this sort of adventure. I don't know if that's the right word, maybe journey is better. It's not necessarily like a super exciting book. Plot is very intimate and focused on Jevick for a large part. There are scenes in this book that I loved, that I found so transporting and dreamlike, and I think Scimitar's writing style really works in certain scenes, like the ones where it is more dreamlike and feels like a altered version of reality. She has this very flowery way of writing that I think works in certain scenes, and then in other places I felt like it needed to be drawn back a little bit. It was like at a 10 at all times, and I feel like I prefer in my reading for there to be a little bit of variation. And I think this book was inspired in no small part by like Middle Eastern and South Asian culture, which tends to be very ornate. Like, I'm thinking of Persian architecture where it's just incredibly intricate and detailed and complex, and I feel like this book was the prose version of that kind of architectural style, which to me reads as overwrought, but I have to admit that this is probably what Scimitar was going for. So I can't necessarily blame her for writing the book that she wanted to write. And it's definitely the kind of book where I could see myself sleeping on it and then coming back and having a greater appreciation for what she was trying to do. I think I would definitely read other things by her. This is probably not a huge impact, but I did read it as an ebook, and I feel like maybe reading it as a physical book would have helped me to appreciate each sentence for what it was and really appreciate the ornateness of each sentence. I think it is interesting to think about like how you read a book and how that impacts how you feel about it and your experience of reading it, because when you're reading a physical book, I think there's almost this curation that's happening of your experience of it, because you can't get away from the cover. You're looking at the cover every single time you pick up the book, whereas with an ebook, you're just looking at the words. In some ways, maybe it's a more honest experience because it's just the words themselves, and in other ways, maybe it's a little bit less intentional. I don't know if I gave a proper plot summary of Stranger in Alondria. There's not really a plot. There is sort of like motivations and reasons for why the main character does things and does certain things, and it is quite interesting in its structure, but it is one of those largely plotless books where you're just going from place to place. And as the book goes on, I actually think that one of the weaknesses of this book is that it doesn't maintain the intimate stakes that it starts with. I would have been totally fine with this book if it had just been plotless and like from going from place to A to B and following this character along. I was on board for that kind of story, and I think towards the end, Scimitar tries to develop larger stakes for the story, and I don't think it works at all. It almost like feels weird that that's included because so much of the book is so intimate and only concerned with Jevic, the main character, and his sort of immediate circle. And I was like, I don't think that the story has the room to support these larger stakes that you're trying to bring in. She doesn't go super in depth into those higher stakes either. So yeah, so I really struggled with that aspect, but at the same time, I really liked the ending of the book, and I thought it brought a sense of closure. Very strange book. Angela had a lot of comparable reading experiences, but personally, I feel like I haven't read a lot of specifically South Asian, Middle Eastern inspired books. Yeah, I'm just curious to see like what the inspirations were. If you're looking for a really ornate, beautifully crafted book, then go for it, but be prepared to not really have a specific character that you can latch onto and to be just sort of, going along for the ride. I know that I've sort of forgotten to do the self-care advent calendar. Prompts started to get kind of repetitive, like journal with Coco, and I was like, I don't want to do this. So my version of self-care is just going to be to keep reading and drink some tea. I actually have this really, really nice tea that I got from Italy. It's this special jasmine green tea, and I want to say this box was like $20, so I'm very sparing with it normally, but it's so good. It smells amazing, and jasmine green tea is just my favorite. It's so like light. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.